I, 32 female, have been married to my husband, 35 male, for 10 years. We have two beautiful children, ages 7 and 5. We've built a comfortable life together, both working stable jobs and sharing a loving relationship. However, my husband's sister, Nina, 29 female, has been a constant thorn in my side since the day we got married. Nina moved to our country from her home country 3 years ago. She came on a student visa and was supposed to stay temporarily, but she ended up overstaying her visa and working illegally. Nina and I have never gotten along. From the very beginning, she has made it clear that she doesn't like me. She's often criticized me for my parenting choices, belittled my career, and made passive-aggressive comments about my appearance. Nina's behavior towards me was not only disrespectful, but also deeply hurtful. From the moment she arrived, Nina criticized every aspect of my life. She would comment on my cooking, saying, "No wonder your kids are so picky. Look at what you feed them." If I dressed up for a night out with my husband, she'd sneer and say, "Trying too hard, aren't we?" She'd even make snide remarks about my job, implying that I wasn't contributing enough to the household. "Must be nice to have a job where you don't actually do anything," she once said, rolling her eyes. One evening, a few weeks after Nina moved in, we hosted a small family dinner. Everything was going well until Nina decided to bring up an extremely personal and painful topic: my miscarriage from a few years back. She casually mentioned it in front of everyone, saying, "Maybe if you took better care of yourself, you wouldn't have lost the baby." I was stunned. Tears welled up in my eyes as the room fell silent. My husband immediately told her off, but the damage was done. I spent the rest of the evening crying in our bedroom, while the rest of the family tried to salvage what was left of the gathering. Nina showed no remorse. The next morning, she acted as if nothing had happened, casually asking me to make her breakfast. When I confronted her about her comment, she laughed and said, "You're too sensitive. It's not my fault you can't handle the truth." Nina seemed to take pleasure in undermining my authority as a parent. She'd give my children sweets right before dinner, despite me asking her not to. She'd let them stay up late, knowing that it would throw off their schedules. When I confronted her, she'd say things like, "You're too strict. Kids need to have fun." One day, she decided to give my daughter a haircut without asking me. I was horrified when I saw the uneven, choppy mess she'd made of my daughter's beautiful hair. When I asked her why she did it, she shrugged and said, "She asked for it. You should thank me for saving you a trip to the salon." Nina was a master manipulator. She'd play innocent in front of my husband, making me look like the unreasonable one. She'd cry and say things like, "I just want to be close to my brother, but she's pushing me away." My husband, feeling guilty, would ask me to be more accommodating. Once, she even lied about me to our friends and family. She told them that I was trying to control her life, spreading rumors that I was jealous of her. It caused a lot of unnecessary drama and strained my relationship with those close to me. Nina's presence also became a financial burden. She'd constantly ask for money, claiming she needed it for essentials. But I'd see her buying luxury items and going out with friends. When I refused to give her money, she'd guilt-trip my husband, who would cave in and give her what she wanted. She'd also run up our utility bills, leaving lights and appliances on all day. She'd take long, hot showers, sometimes twice a day, and never contributed a dime to the household expenses. When I brought it up, she'd say, "I'm family. You shouldn't expect me to pay." The final straw came when I discovered that my watch was missing. This wasn't just any watch. It was a precious gift from my husband, one that held immense sentimental value. At first, I thought our housemaid might have stolen it, as she had access to our home and the watch had disappeared suddenly. I was hesitant to accuse anyone without evidence, so I kept my suspicions to myself. Then, one evening, I overheard Nina on the phone. She was in the living room, talking loudly, and didn't realize I was in the next room. I heard her laugh and say, "She's so stupid. She thinks the housemaid took the watch. I took it, bought myself some nice clothes with the money I got from selling it." My heart sank, and anger bubbled up inside me. How could she do something like this? I confronted my husband about it, expecting his support and understanding. Instead, he refused to believe me. He said that Nina would never do something like that, and accused me of trying to create drama. This was a pivotal moment for me. I realized that if I wanted to protect my family and myself, I would have to take matters into my own hands. So I started researching Nina's immigration status and discovered that she had overstayed her visa by over a year. I knew that this was a serious violation and that she could be deported. I wrestled with my conscience for weeks, But every time Nina insulted me, belittled my children, or caused chaos in our home, I felt more justified in my plan. One day, I anonymously reported Nina to the immigration authorities. I provided them with her details and explained that she was living and working in the country illegally. It didn't take long for them to investigate and confirm my claims. Within a few weeks, immigration officers showed up at our house and took Nina into custody. My husband was devastated. He couldn't believe that his sister was being deported. He blamed himself for not doing more to help her, and blamed me for not being more understanding. I tried to explain that I had no choice, that Nina's presence was tearing our family apart, but he wouldn't listen. Our marriage became strained, and we argued constantly. He demanded I apologize to Nina. Nina was also furious. She called me from the detention center, screaming that I had ruined her life and that she would never forgive me. She claimed that she would find a way to come back and make my life miserable. Since Nina's deportation, I've been racked with guilt. I know that I did what I thought was best for my family, but I can't shake the feeling that I went too far. My husband and I are still working through our issues, and while our home is more peaceful without Nina, the damage to our relationship is significant. I've tried reaching out to Nina to apologize, but she refuses to speak to me. I've also been attending therapy to help deal with my guilt and the strain on my marriage. My therapist tells me that I need to forgive myself and move forward, but it's easier said than done. So Reddit, I need to know, am I the a-hole for getting my sister-in-law deported? Was I justified in my actions, or did I go too far? I'd appreciate your honest opinions and any advice you might have. You're the a-hole. Look, I get it. Nina was awful to you and your family, but deportation is a serious matter. Did you exhaust all other options before taking such a drastic step? There might have been legal and counseling avenues to explore before resorting to this. Your relationship with your husband and your children's stability should have been prioritized. Not the a-hole. Your sister-in-law crossed so many boundaries and showed zero respect for your family and your home. The fact that she stole your watch and then mocked you behind your back is despicable. You tried to resolve things with your husband, but he didn't believe you. You did what you had to do to protect your family, and that's commendable. Not the a-hole. Nina's actions were reprehensible, from stealing your watch to undermining your parenting and attempting to sabotage your marriage. You tried to resolve issues internally, but your husband's refusal to acknowledge Nina's toxicity left you with no other choice. Deportation is a serious consequence, but Nina's illegal status was a direct result of her own choices. You did what was necessary to protect your family, and that's not being an a-hole. My husband and I have 4 kids, ranging in ages from 7 to 14 months. We are both from families with 4 kids, and one of the early things we bonded over is that we both wanted 4 kids. There's just something about having a built-in crew that appealed to us, and we're both super close with all of our siblings. We have been incredibly lucky. I am able to work from home, so haven't had to put my career on hold too much. We have the space and savings for 4 kids. We had 0 fertility issues. My pregnancies and labors were easy and uneventful, and we even had them in a boy-girl order, which is what we both secretly hoped for, though we would have been happy with any order. Our kids are all happy and healthy, if not yet appreciating having so many siblings. My husband is a great father and a great husband. The problem, as my husband sees it, is this. All 4 kids have my coloring, which is both pretty distinctive and different from my husband's. He is a pale, with brown hair, brown eyes, and freckles. I am olive-skinned with light brown hair and green eyes. My family is chiefly white Italian-American mutts, but my dad has this coloring, and so do all of my siblings. The problem started about 5 months ago, when we were visiting my small hometown. My husband was at the grocery store with our 2 oldest, and a lady came up to them and said, "You must be DeAngelos." DeAngelo being a stand-in for my maiden name here, my dad's last name, etc. Since then, he has been stewing about the fact that all the kids look like me, and people probably think he isn't related to us, that he really thought at least one of his kids would look like him, etc. He has started joking, aka not really joking, about wanting to have another kid so he can have one that is his. Nope. 4 is enough for me. My pregnancies were all thankfully easy, but I'm getting older. Plus, I don't want another baby. I have been pregnant or nursing a baby almost continually for the last 8 years. During our worst fight about this, he mentioned that I should have told him that our genes were strong, because when he was upset about the grocery store incident, my mother awkwardly tried to make him feel better. She was as confused as I was, and offhandedly said, "Well, you know, the D'Angelo genes are strong. All my kids look like their dad too, because we all have this coloring." Aside from how ridiculous this is, he and I have been married 10 years, together for 14, and he has met all of my siblings numerous times and attended 2 D'Angelo family reunions. I've pointed out to him that I think our kids do look like him. I see his features on their faces, nose, mouth, eye shape, tooth gap, for 2 of them, and in their body language. They all have his toes. Our oldest daughter is his personality mini-me and has the same exact body language as him. I see both of us in our kids. They just happen to have my coloring. On the one hand, I want to do something nice to make him a scrapbook where I put pictures of our kids and write out these things I've told him. On the other hand, I think he's being a ridiculous baby. Neither of us had any control over what our kids would look like, and they're here now and we can't change it. So get over it. But in 5 months, his complaining about it and self-consciousness about it has only gotten worse. God forbid he says that where the kids can hear. Wow, there's really nothing you can do about this. What does he expect? Seek out some cutting-edge science, if it exists, and tailor a child's looks to more reflect his? That's about as valid a thought as his grievances. His children look how they look, and what can they do about that? Not a thing. This is his problem, and he needs to get the duck over it. Another child on the remote chance it looks like him? Nope. Genetics already favors your look. That's an outside chance at best. And how would he take it if that child also looked like you? You should have told him that you had dominant genes. What the duck would he do with that information? So what if the children look more like you? They are his children too. Treating you badly because of this is, hell, it's just ridiculous. He's being a child about it. Oh, how about that? There's a child with his looks at last. Okay, so indirectly, I invited my BFF's ex-boyfriend. I'm friendly with the best friend, Stan, of the ex. We all used to work together years ago. Stan and I text each other for the holidays, and I go out to eat with him maybe once or twice a year. Anyway, I invited Stan to my wedding with a +1. He is bringing his friend's ex. I let my friend know just as a heads up, and she flipped out. She couldn't believe I was inviting Stan, first of all, saying we aren't even that close and that my fiancé hasn't even met him in the 7 years we have been together. She said, knowing how and horrible her ex treated her, why would I even leave it open for the possibility that Stan would bring my ex? I told her, how was I supposed to know? And in our culture, it is custom to invite everyone you know for the red envelopes. My friend thinks I am full of crap, and now she is saying she doesn't think she will come to my wedding because of how uncomfortable she feels. She is one of my bridesmaids though, so I want her to suck it up. If her boyfriend was so she shouldn't have stayed with him for that long. I think she needs to grow up and learn to deal with people she doesn't like. It is my wedding, and it is not like I'm going to sit them at the same table. So, is she acting like a jerk, or am I the a-hole? Yes, the a-hole. You are inviting someone for the red envelope, but you clearly don't care about your friend. You are the jerk, and you have no idea about how relationships work, or how hard it is to get out of them. Did you even like your friend at all, ever? If you did, you'd at least let her out of your wedding without being an even bigger a-hole than you already are. A few years ago, I, 26 female, did 23andMe DNA testing as part of a university class. It was really exciting at the time to find out my genetic heritage and see second cousins that I knew I was related to linked on the site. Fast forward to 2 days ago. I was watching a video that reminded me of my 23andMe and decided to see what kind of upgrades they had made to the system, if SNPs were being reassessed with larger population information, etc. When I went into my family tree page, I had 2 new matches at the top, both of which were marked as half-brothers. I had never seen those names before in my life. My extended family is quite close and connected. When I looked at the breakdown of the chromosomal relatedness, we shared nothing on the X chromosome, which meant inherited from their mothers. So the implication is pretty clear if we are indeed half-siblings. We share a father. I spent about an hour going through the likelihood of the site messing up a connection, the possibility of them being cousins, etc., and nothing made any sense. I Facebook stalked one of them, 25 male. His whole name was on the site, while the other was just initials, and found out they were originally from somewhere that my dad almost certainly worked at some point. They had a brother, 23 male, linked to their profile, matching the initials of my other half-brother on 23andMe. Essentially, it seems as though while I was a newborn and then again while my younger brother, 24 male, was a newborn, my dad impregnated a woman in the town he was likely working in. Now, my parents have been together my entire life. They were married at 28, but didn't have kids until my mom was 34 because of fertility issues. I have two brothers, 28 male and 24 male. My dad often went out of town. We live in Vancouver for work, going to the interior or other provinces or states. It was the norm for him to be gone for a month or two over the course of my young life, but he was always home for holidays and birthdays. When I saw that I had two people being tagged as half-brothers based on the genetics we shared, I thought that I must be dreaming. I was completely sick to my stomach, though I'm not entirely certain that his work and their birth years match 100%. It's entirely plausible that he could have impregnated someone in that town, and that's the worst part. So while my mother was all alone, taking care of 3 young kids, my dad was screwing around. My parents have never really gotten along. More than once in my life I have anticipated their divorce, but it never came. They are just wildly different people, and I honestly really don't understand what even brought them together in the first place. All that considered, I just never imagined my dad would be a cheater, let alone have other children, but it's thrown a lot of things into perspective. He used to always joke that if we didn't behave, treat him right, etc., that he would go and live with his other family. That always came off as a joke, but now it seems far less funny. He has always refused to be on social media and will get upset if you post a picture online with him in it. Maybe he was working his hardest to avoid online contact with his other kids, mistress. We had a number of years where my mom was really concerned about money, stating that we have a much smaller Christmas, etc., because we just couldn't afford as much. Now, I wonder if that was true at all, or if my dad was sending money to his mistress, in which case all 5 of us kids suffered, because there's no way he supported both families. My mom went back to work once my younger brother was past 3. From the time I was about 10 plus, my dad has worked in Vancouver and only worked out of town once for about a year in the States. He's been far from a perfect father, and he's terrible at expressing his emotions, but I always felt as though he loved us. When my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer 4 years ago, he stuck by her and did all he could to support her through things. They recently moved out of the city, since both are retired, and they seem reasonably happy in their new home. But part of me wonders if my dad wanted to get out of the city because my half-brothers tried contacting him. Both appear to be in Vancouver, the island now. The move was extremely abrupt, and the house they moved to was chosen by my dad. They made an agreement with the owner before our house was even on the market, and everything was insanely rushed. I've basically accepted the fact that 23andMe hasn't messed up that relationship. It seems wildly unlikely that I'd match these two people so closely if they were not related, especially since I'm connected to other people that I know are relatives. I keep trying to come up with some kind of excuse, like that my dad was a sperm donor or something. But the simplest answer is likely the correct one, right? I don't consider family sacred the way that my parents do. I have considered more than once that I might have to cut them out of my life at some point. They can be quite emotionally and will sometimes make mildly sexist or racist jokes that I don't want any children I might someday have to ever hear. But even with that in mind, I never imagined I would have to deal with something like this. I'm the first to say that I'd rather choose my family than settle for those I share genes with. But I'm slipping a little on that conviction since I found this out. I don't really know if I care to have any kind of relationship with my half-siblings. They have never been a part of my life. The only things we share at this point are DNA and a cheating parents. When I told my boyfriend, 29 male, of 5 years about this discovery, he suggested I talk to my half-siblings before I talk to my dad, but I don't really want to do that. I also talked to my older brother, 28 male, about it, who values family even less than I do, but he and I are extremely close, and he suggested that I should consider how bringing something like this up would affect my parents. What do we gain from drudging this up? Who do we help more than hurt? He and I are both of the mind that our mother is in cognitive decline right now, maybe from the chemo, radiation, maybe just generally. She's become extremely irritable, easy to anger, and forgetful in ways that she never used to be. Neither of my parents are saints. We agreed that neither of them would likely ever find another person to be with if they divorced at this point. I worry about my mom being alone if her cancer comes back and her mind starts going even more. And I worry about my dad being lonely and possibly hurting himself. He suffers from some pretty severe toxic masculinity. At the end of the day, this all happened more than 2 decades ago, and I don't think it's possible that my dad has been in close contact with the woman he impregnated for at least 15 years. Even so, I'm incredibly frustrated and mad. He lied to my mother while she was raising us. He lied to us about our half-siblings. His actions are not fair to anyone. I value communication and honesty in my relationships almost solely because I didn't see that in my parents' relationship. I feel quite betrayed, and I can't imagine how my mom would feel, provided she doesn't already know and is keeping it from us. My mom asked me to call her yesterday to chat, and then ended up putting me on speakerphone so my dad could talk to me too. If I had known she wasn't going to talk to me one-on-one, I never would have called. I almost pretended that my dad wasn't there, but nearly burst into tears when he started talking. I don't know how I can ever see him in the same way again, but I also don't want to ruin my mom's life by bringing it up. I know I should probably tell my younger brother about it and get him up to speed, but I don't know if that's such a good idea. I have a feeling he'd either be apathetic or contact the half-siblings or my dad without discussing it with my other brother and I first. I appreciated that my older brother at least stood behind any decision I make regarding the half-siblings, given I'm the one who discovered it, but I don't think my younger brother would give me the same support. The other component is that it seems as though the half-brothers don't want to contact me. They were active on 23andMe far more recently than I was, especially considering they were never linked to me previously, 3 years ago. Since they opted into the Family Connections portion of 23andMe, they would have seen my name and information and my flag as a half-sister. If they wanted to contact me, I'm sure that they could have. My name and geographical info was on 23andMe, which could easily lead them to my social media. It was easy enough for me to find them. After all, we actually had a couple mutual friends on Facebook. If they had the opportunity to confront me about this and chose not to, wouldn't the right thing be to leave them alone? They likely never asked for this information any more than I did. I guess I have a few questions. Is it worth my effort and parents' possible heartbreak to confront my dad about this? Should I reach out to my supposed half-siblings, even if they didn't reach out to me? Should I tell my younger brother about what's happening and try to resolve a way forward with both of my brothers and myself? Or should I try to forget about this whole thing and move on like I never saw it? Edited to add. The fertility issues were on my mom's end. I've had a number of conversations with her about it because we might share the condition. I suppose there is a possibility that a sperm donor was used, but it seems highly unlikely that my mom would have in-depth conversations with me about it, while also never mentioning a sperm donor. Given your mother's cognitive issues, I'd think long and hard before dumping this on her. By all means, tell your little brother. What's more, feel free to go unload on your father. He's a POS. Personally, if I were in your situation, I would confront my dad. For my own closure. I would hash out whatever needs to be hashed out with him. And then at the end, tell him we're not going to tell mom, because she doesn't need that given what she's going through right now. Your younger brother I wouldn't let know until you have everything else taken care of. Maybe even if that means waiting until your parents have passed. Your half-siblings would be a toss-up. I'd either start there and decide if I want to continue based on their reactions, or just leave them be. The choice is really up to you.